back. I think I was about 14, and we didn't have electricity at that time. And so my aunt that I grew up with, I was asking, I found a piece of paper about the Rivonia Trial. So I wanted to know more about the Rivonia Trial. So then she told me by candlelight the story of Nelson Mandela in the Rivonia Trial. And I think that's where it started for me, because I had all these questions. But in 1975, we were asked to raise the flag on Republic Day. And there's a group of us decided we're not going to raise the flag on Republic Day. We will rather resist that, because this was not our republic. And we knew that we're going to be in really big trouble, because we were in matric and we were supposed to write exams and we were threatened, but we didn't raise the flag. So that's where my activism really started, by standing up to that. And I think for me, I realized that if I want to live in South Africa, I couldn't see a future for, if I had children one day, my children to live in the same kind of oppression of apartheid. So that made me think a lot about the future. And then I went to the University of the Western Cape in 1976. I got a scholarship from the Catholic Church to do law. I started off doing law. The interesting thing about that was that when I got there, most of the lecturers were all white, And sometimes we had to go to Stellenbosch to go and do some classes, and it was not a very friendly environment for me. And that actually, it's how you start experiencing things, that it makes it deeper for you. So I became part of the political struggle in 1976. I was on campus when we all started going into the streets at UWC and fighting the police and running and being whipped and having them come on our campus. And we had a lot of mass meetings. And that year, I think it was that year that, or maybe it was that year that Alan Bussa came back from his studies abroad. So I was part of the VCS, which is actually the Christian fellowship on campus. And he was I think it was through the Dutch Reformed Church. So he was our pastor for the group. So then we used to go and listen to a lot of his talks. And so he also, he encouraged us. And so for me, that year was a real big turning point. I became very radical. And I felt like, I would die for this cause, because it became so personal to me, especially having been shot at and chased by the dogs and being hit. I felt like I'm willing to do this if it's going to bring change in South Africa. In that period too, I was really good friends with a young man called Zainuddin Kaldin, and I'm not sure if I can use his name, but he was a friend of mine, and Leslie Saleka, and I know Les was accused of setting the post office on fire. So and I think he went to Robben Island. So because of my relationship with them, when the university closed, I went to go and tell them that because you had to go and tell them that you're leaving. Well, on the train home, I wasn't even sure. It was this young man that was on the train with me, and I noticed him, but didn't really think anything of it. So when I got to the station, the Park Station in Johannesburg, I went to go and get my luggage, and they didn't have my luggage. They didn't give my luggage to me. And I couldn't understand what was going on. So they told me I have to go to Hillbrow to get my luggage, and I had no clue what was going on. So apparently they took my luggage because they had me under surveillance, and they went through my luggage. So I had to go to an office in Hillbrow to get my luggage. And so even though you felt that you knew you were not safe, but you also didn't know that it was so close. The reason why I didn't want to go back is because I thought I lost my scholarship, and I wasn't sure if I'll get another one, because there was a lot of threats made against us. We were threatened a lot with scholarships and stuff. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't go back. But two of my friends decided to encourage me to go back. So in 1977, I did go back and I completed my degree. But I think what stood out for me was the fact that the fact that we were a group that really would not just, it was not unstructured. It was really very intentional on how we did stuff. We were really educated about certain things that you do, how you do it. And um, I think it grounded me in who I became, because I'm still an activist today, even though I live in the US. It's something I carry with me, but also it's a commitment you make. It's something. It's not a thing that you do because it's exciting. It's really becomes a way of life. For me, it did, because it was in my heart. Because you can be an activist any place, in any situation, you know.
So if you could just expand on that from that period and the experiences that you went through, and anything that stood out for you.
Well, I don't know if you probably were not in the education system at that time. It was really hard to be a teacher, because you had a lot of resistance from the principal and the leadership at your school. So at our school, we formed a group, and we were the outcast at our school, because we were the people who were challenging the government and deciding, okay, this is what we need to do. And not everyone was on board. People were very scared to lose their jobs. So for me personally, I felt like, well, I'm in this and I'm going to see it through. Whatever happens, happens, but change need to come. And so when I was at the school, we had a lot of threats from the government, from the inspectors came, and they would threaten us. And I was teaching matrics, so it was even harder for me, because I had to get these kids to do, and I taught biology, so you can't really, you had to teach. And so at our schools, and so in 1983, when the UDF was launched, our group, we were not a group that was established as a non-profit, but we were just a group of teachers deciding that this is going to be our route that we're going to follow, and we're going to make sure that everyone in our school become part of that. But at that time too, after the launching of the UDF, I think I felt more empowered, that I was part of something big, and I felt like even if I can change one person at my school mind, I will do that. And during that time also, we as a group went to different schools. We talked to teachers to start the teachers union, and I think that is where Rector really started, because we all, like, I remember us getting support from a teachers union in the UK, so we started that way. It was really hard to go to these schools, because teachers were very scared and resistant, and they saw you as radical coming to tell them. But at the schools, when the unrest started at the schools, we used to have different mass meetings, and the kids would do, they actually organized themselves in many ways, because everything was underground. So we would just mentor them in ways that was not obvious.
I wanted to know, how did it was a very stressful period. You were pregnant, yes, and the police was everywhere. How did you manage to cope? What mechanisms were in place? Were there any systems to support you as a teacher, who, or was it just your little group that supported each other? Or was there any systems in place?
I don't think there was any systems in place. It was a continuous kind of a stressful situation, because I was just saying to my husband recently, I never really had closure of all the stuff that happened to us or to me, because I was driving to school one day, and because I lived in Macassar and I had to go past Khayelitsha, and people were throwing stones at my car, and they just missed me. But I still got to school, because we were told that whatever happens, if the fires are burning, you have to come. So we had to go to school. And sometimes we'll come on and drive into Mitchell's Plain and see the tires burning, and they stop you, but the kids also knew who you were. So you felt safe, but there was a lot of fear for me. I was very scared a lot of the time, but I was also very determined, because I felt like if the kids are in danger, I have to be there to make sure they're okay. And so I would go to some of their meetings to make sure they are okay, even though sometimes you couldn't really protect them because it's a big group and you have to make sure that we would go with them, make sure that they're okay, but we could not always guarantee that everyone's going to be okay because we don't know what's going to happen. It was such a time of uncertainty, and um, I think for me, I put that very far away in my mind because I felt like it's something that I don't always want to think about until I got this opportunity. And I said maybe I should talk a little bit about it because I was going to write about it, and I was like, okay. But then a lot of the time you forget, and then certain things reminds you.